Today, I would like to share my mini research about the implementation of ASEAN Convention against trafficking in persons, especially women and children, or active as Indonesia's effort to overcome human trafficking since 2011, yeah, 2017, sorry, 2017, since Indonesia agreed to ratify this convention in 2017. My name is Rizky, and currently I'm working as a lecturer at Universitas Mataram in International Relations Department. So first of all, let me discuss first about the existence of uh, human trafficking, that we all agree and we all know that human trafficking is more becoming the world's attention nowadays, because the number of trafficking, human trafficking especially, is increasing every year. And mostly the victims are children and women, which I will explain later why women became the main victims, especially in Indonesia. Uh, if we talk about human trafficking, it is not only about the smuggling people, but sometimes it also including the threats, torture, sexual violence or sexual abuse, imprisonment, yeah, exploitation, and other acts that treat humans as object. So basically, uh, it like you sell people, yeah, basically. So this is become a world problem nowadays, and since we are located in Southeast Asia and we have a lot of uh, enter or exit borders, so yeah, we are very vulnerable to these crimes. And well, human trafficking actually start around 200 years ago. Yeah, it's not a new thing in the world. But then we know the trafficking called a slavery. Yeah, and 200 years ago, the slavery happens based on or caused by different ethnicity, different skin color, or social status, which we agree that it still happen nowadays. But now the crime are more organized, and everyone can be the victims. Me, you, yeah, everyone can be the victims of uh, human trafficking. So what are the cause of what is the cause of human trafficking? As we all know that globalization have consequences like the development of technology, and it make people easier to cross uh, countries everywhere by having a passport or like communicate to others. So the flow of informations are easier nowadays, which is uh, it will have consequences, of course. So globalization is one of the reason that's why human trafficking happen. And basically, we do know that we need money. People need money. So by using technology, by using any other chance of globalization, yeah, they yeah try to find money from many activities, including human trafficking. Yeah, but we all agree that human trafficking is a criminal activity. Yeah, because of the the movement, the mobilization across countries easier, then this human trafficking can be called as uh, transnational crime, which it's one of my uh, concern as international relations academic. So transnational crime nowadays threaten the stability of a country, region, and even the world. So it's dangerous, very dangerous, and it's become threat for all human mankind. Like I said before, one of the causes of human trafficking, yeah, because of the rapid development of technology, and the easy flow of information, and also the global economic and political instability border with us. So this make Indonesia really vulnerable to the activity of human trafficking, not only in Indonesia but among ASEAN countries. So ASEAN countries then agreed to establish a convention called ASEAN Convention against trafficking in persons, especially women and children. And Indonesia agreed to ratify this convention in 2017. By ratifying this convention, Indonesia uh, must show its commitment, yeah, to this convention by adopt the values, the objectives, the goals of this uh, convention, yeah, by making rules, by strengthen our borders, yeah, many things we can that will I will explain later. So the active are adopt human rights values from Universal Declaration, from UN Charter as well, and active also adopt some commitment, like we are agreed to decrease number of transnational uh, crime. So as I mentioned before, women are considered as the easiest subordinate to be persuaded to become a victim of human trafficking. You know, the commitment of ASEAN countries to respond the issues. Yeah, and the active was made with the consideration of human rights principles, like I said, like I mentioned before. Yeah, they adopt the values of United Nations Charter, and also the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and almost all of the international convention related to uh, human rights. Yeah. So this is a big picture of active. Well, and Indonesia, by ratifying the active, then Indonesia must show, yeah, its commitment to adopt the values, the regulation, everything in active. So let's say active has become the instrument of Indonesia to overcome the issues. Some values that have been adopted by Indonesia, but like regulates the provisions that must be carried out in dealing with trafficking problems, both prevention and handling. So we produce new regulation, we produce new law, new rules, ya, undang-undang, or peraturan-peraturan pemerintah to tackle these issues, not only to handling but also to prevent human rights. And by producing the regulations, then the government need the participation of the public. The government need the participation of National Commission of Women, National Commission for Women, or National Commission for Human Rights in Indonesia. So active us, every country that agreed to ratify, to have togetherness, yeah, between central government, regional government, and the community, yeah, to work together to prevent, to handling, to respond these issues. And by ratifying the active as well, uh, among countries in East Asia, able to exchanging information, yeah, about the victims, number of victims, about the profile of the syndicates, active for our branding, yeah, because we do know that Indonesia have a lot of mobilization, yeah, because our tourism. So this by having a big commitment to handling the issues, yeah, it shows to the world that Indonesia very serious and uh, to prevent, to also to protect the human rights. And also, of course, this is for our national interests, yeah, for our stability, for our economic stability, political stability. And Indonesia also providing protection for victims of traffickings, not only the victims but also the witness and also the victims' family. And the last, uh, by agreeing to work together in the active, yeah, among the ASEAN countries, will make ASEAN countries to have the same perceptions, yeah, regarding human trafficking, and build more intensive cooperation, especially in law enforcement. So I think that's all from me, and I give the floor back to the moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mas Hairul. Maybe I can briefly conclude that you give Hairul Rizky. The next presentation will be me. Anyone can see my presentation?
Yes, Mas, it's very clear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will present. It's an old research, not very new, because I already have it on full text. It's I feel very curious about black metal in Banyumas, and the small title is the negotiation between the black metal and pesantren through Penjara Nurani. How this coming? Okay, this is the contents. This is why I feel curious, because in 2015, I still play on the band. No, I already stopped it. I witnessed an obscure phenomena in Kemeranjen, Banyumas, where the metal gigs was induced by kepala desa and kepala pesantren. Almost the people around this gig is santri, and the gigs itself named Penjara Nurani. Yeah, Penjara Nurani. Then there is writing behind, yeah, Jamilatun Jamaah. It's what in Islam. In Islam, there were halal bihalal. It's even happening after Idul Fitri, where people forgiving each other, but through the metal scene. It's very curious and very obscure to me. So then, by that time, I try to track down how this gig happened and who were involved in this gig and how they involved and what were their methods. In my research, I will discuss about my question briefly, and I found that there were two discussions about the actors and then the methods from each actors. The first actor was this a band named Agnostica. If you hear Agnostica, and then you must refer to agnostic, someone that do not believe in religion. The left picture was their former lineup, and the right picture was their current lineup now. Agnostica was formed in 2006 by Ade. Later, Ade used Ade Pramhel. Pramhel. Of course, if you're joining black metal band, you cannot name yourself Ade Pramheaven. It always refer to something scary. Ade Pramhel as his stage name. This band formed to channeling Ade's passion to a genre called black metal. In this genre called black metal, Ade when Ade became my informant, he told me that he only knew two black metal band. It's a general black metal band such as Cradle of Filth and Dimmu Borgir. They were very inspiring Ade to form this band. And then by the time Ade start to the band, he then realized that his band was giving influence to their fans, especially in the place where Ade live in Kemeranjen. Yeah. Many of them, the fans concluded that Agnostica, by their name and their genre, of course, was a Satan prophet. It's not something that I put in here without a reason, because Ade told me that the pesantren and the santri call Ade is penyebar aliran sesat ya, penyebar aliran sesat. I can say that it's Satan prophet. It's okay for the English. It came from another actors lives around Ade and Agnostica, the santri and the pesantren. But this Satan prophet also divided the santri and the pesantren, because not every santri and not all the pesantren agreed that Ade was a Satan prophet. And then the latter, Ade doing appropriation, realizing that Satan prophet, Ade start an appropriation that tried to explain that he was not a Satan prophet, and because he realized that if he started an open war with the pesantren and the santri, he will want anything at any cost, because their power is stronger and Ade is only a subculture in pesantren. So Ade did this appropriation through his distro named Cahaya Timur Heaven Merchandise. Ade start to change this distro name to make the pesantren and santri realize that he's not a Satan prophet. There's no Satan prophet consider about heaven. Ade put and change this name on his distro, and later he do a very small method, but for me that was very surprising, because Ade gave a merchandise for every people shop something in his distro, or everyone who just stopped by. Ade gave a sticker with writing on that sticker, Hijrah from the Darkness. And it means Ade start to rebranding himself, that he's not a Satan prophet with that small method, Hijrah from the Darkness. It means transforming from something darkness into something lighter. That what I did as an actor in this Kemeranjen war. I can say that. The second actor was the Santria. This picture I get from my personal document and from Ade. It happened when Penjara Nurani held in 2015, and this is very beautiful picture Ade sent me. He told to the santri to take a picture about their activity inside the pesantren and to reveal their identity not only as a santri but also a metalhead. This in here in black hoodie you can read, it's actually PSUC, abbreviation of Penjara Suci Underground Community. Later I will explain this. And for the santri themselves, there were two methods. The first was Penjara Suci Underground Community. Now this was the first main problem, actually, not only method but also the problem. Actually, what Ade did influenced many santri. Among them, Ade mentioned a name, Black. It's not real name, yeah. It's not real name. There's no parents want to name their son with only Black. it's a popular name. The most charismatic santri who formed a death metal band named Srakal. Beside form the death metal band, Black also initiated a community named Penjara Suci Underground Community to accommodate the santris who love underground music and beyond. I put italic font in underground because in my region in Banyumas, it still happen that people who play loud music, whatever loud music that involving scream or growl or blast beat or very fast picking guitar is not divided into clear genre such as black metal, death metal, but you can just name it. Oh, it's underground music. So that it's something I need to tell you why I put italic font in the underground. The Penjara Suci itself, it's a very unique naming, because Penjara Suci is referred to holy prison. When you live in pesantren, it's such you live in prison, but it's holy because you were prisoned with under the enforcement of agamas law, Islamic law there. So that they put this name, quite obscure, but it's very interesting, Penjara Suci Underground Community. Later, after the Penjara Suci Underground Community form, then Ade and Black start to sharing each other, and Black decided to held Penjara Nurani. This was the second main problem because this Penjara Nurani is a weekly art fair that held in pesantren, but Black want to perform all underground music in this gig, and the gig itself we want to make it official gig under their school, under the pesantren. It's the second main problem. The final actor is the pesantren. There were 3 pesantren in around Ades Place. It's Kemeranjen. There were Pondok Pesantren Darul Falah, Pondok Pesantren Raudatul Quran, and Pondok Pesantren Raudatul Tolibin. This pesantren, you can say, was a moderate pesantren, which means they are associated with Nahdlatul Ulama. I can say if it's moderate because even if they were moderate, they didn't pass fatwa haram to music like any purist pesantren, because there were purist pesantren, Wahhabis pesantren, you can name it, that put fatwa haram into music. But these 3 pesantren didn't put fatwa haram to music. But still, they couldn't tolerate it. Black metal revealed by Agnostica, and agreed that their santris will organize underground gigs under the name of the pesantren. That's the final actor method. And the last one, as a conclusion, I want you to look into the writing on the right, because the picture will be my punchline. So Ade start to build communication with pesantren to did a negotiation. It's a common communication. Ade go to pesantren and start to doing not formal communication, but he going to pesantren, start to chit chat or what else, so that people inside pesantren, especially the pengurus pesantren, realize that and understand that Ade wasn't a Satan prophet. He was a normal people, but he really loved black metal. There was no one of his lyric that actually contains satanic material, because in black metal worldwide we can say some examples like Satyricon. Maybe Satyricon is directly hailing the Satan, and then Behemoth, even though they were not black metal band, they were death metal band. They did blasphemy to Christ with very vulgar language. But Ade never put something satanic into his lyric. Because of that communication, and then the pesantren start to accept it that Ade and Penjara Suci Underground community was nothing but only youth eruption. The youth that want to what is it? That want to explain himself, want to express himself through the metal music. That's all. And the last negotiation that not only pesantren that involved in this communication, but also I put this in front of this political power holder because this is authorization ya. There is a police and pemerintahan desa that conclude the Penjara Nurani, the gigs that held by Penjara Suci Underground community was better gigs than dangdutan gigs, ya, dangdut koplo gigs, ya. Because their crowd, the underground gigs crowd, was easier to handle, yeah, thanks to AD and Black. That's the negotiation, and the picture is the pinnacle of AD's negotiation, yeah. You can it's okay if you want to laugh, it's okay because I found that this is funny. Ade decided to release his new album named Agnostica, and actually Agnostica is not a person that didn't believe in religion or what else, but Agnostica is abbreviation of Art Generation of Symphonic Aesthetica. Yeah, Art Generation of Symphonic Aesthetica. Maybe it's not proper English maybe, yeah, but it's a pinnacle that pinnacle negotiation that they have been tried to negotiate between actor in Kemeranjen scene. There is Agnostica himself, and then the santri, and then the pesantren. And Ade, the last time I contacted Ade, he told me that he's going to having acoustic session, Agnostica going to having acoustic session in pesantren. It's a very, very huge achievement for black metal to can play acoustic session inside the pesantren. That's all of my presentation, and for my acknowledgement, this research has been published full text on Laras 2017. Thanks to Ade Pramhel, my informant, to give all the knowledge that I never realized before, and my brother Irfan, that he told me that I can finish this mini research, and I want to greet Ferdi and Mas Rizky. Maybe they were in this room also. They also in Laras in back then in 2017. And then Kemal, my friend who accompanied me to finish this research, and my wife Margi, and my only son Amarga Bismadaya for helping me realizing this mini research. Okay, that's all for my presentation. I think we can move to another presenter.
Yeah.
Mas Yasir, please,
Yes.
Mas Yasir.
Mas Wiman, thank you very much for time. But it seems that I have different discussion between the previous speaker with Mas Rizky and Mas Wiman. Okay, wait. I will share my PowerPoint first. Yeah. Okay, do you see my slide clearly?
Yes, Mas Yasir.
Okay. So, my name is Yasir Yadi from Universitas Terbuka. Today, I would like to share about the Open University Jakarta Choir Club sings virtual choir during the pandemic COVID-19 lockdown. So this is the stories of our communities in our institution in Universitas Terbuka Jakarta. Hope it will encourage and motivate the others during the pandemic COVID-19, we still can do many things, yeah, other than just stay at home and doing nothing. So the idea, as we might know, that singing is one of many activities that everyone loves. And here, Universitas Terbuka learning with the distance education system. We have online system, we have online learning and many things. Besides in academic life, in online, we can also do the shifting for the students to do online activities. So one of the students activities that we have here is club, Universitas Terbuka Choir Club. So uh, the Universitas Terbuka Jakarta Choir Club is one of the members of students in our community who love to sing and also shows regularity of their talents, hobbies, in which in the group voice field. And it's really positive because it can stimulate and develop and also help the other students to express themselves in terms of singing. So in the schedule, actually, UTG, our choir club has a training session to compete for this competition, and we also have a regular training schedule before pandemic coming. In 2020, we have a graduation day in February and April, and also we do have a national choir competition in September. So we have a very tight schedule in this 2020. But since the pandemic coming, the virus is coming, so we have to do another strategy to make the existence of the choir club and can do many things, especially in graduation day and their national choir competition. Uh, during the idea in our community during the lockdown here, the students can still can exercise with health protocol if they're offline and do online virtual exercise. So the coach in terms is our students also do the regular program, and she also make another online program so everyone can do exercise from their home. And the methods in training in choir team, specifically, they have linear methods, imitation methods, and volatile methods. These three methods is used when they practice their daily program. Uh, as you might know, we have achieved various achievements from regional and national competition. Specifically this year, we have we do also make a great video sing from home. So the editor edits so our students from all over place, and it's supported for our this Natalis Labs September and support the others students during the pandemic COVID-19 lockdown. So the views of our choir club is for experience, for time, and for sharing and learning. So this is one of the example of our students do sing from home. So they made some three videos, different song, and they edited. They make it from their home, and we edit it to support our other the other students that, and also to motivate the other students so they can still do their activities during the pandemic COVID-19. Now, as you might know, also in singing in choir, it also helps students to succeed specifically in school, in university, in work, and also in the daily life because it can uh, share your hobbies, your interests, reduce stress level and depression. It's also same with the other music genre like a punk, jazz, pop, dangdut, and other things. So it's also can improve the feeling of social well-being. We do also do for competition. We don't see it for we have to be a winner. We don't have to be like that. We just sharing the experience, do the activities, practice, and get our self confidence. And we do also to be networking with the other universities, and also aerobic and toning. You can uh, practice with your stomach, your muscle, your breath, and many things in choir club. So this is some of example pictures of students exercise during the pandemic COVID-19. We have social distancing here, maybe only 1 meter for each player. And after that, they also can do online exercise, virtual exercise from home. And specifically here, we just to divide the coaching clinic to their sound, which one is will be the bass, who is will be the alto, the sopran, and also the tenor. And what we do there, we also do some exercise to make the movement, to make it interesting. So the choir club also do some dance, small dance, traditional dance, to prepare for graduation day and also to prepare for the competition. And this picture is the competition day. We what is it? We use Jakarta culture. We all the people here use the Jakarta culture clothes. So we say like encim and also kebaya for the male and female. So we have a virtual competition for the National Choir Club competition last 3 months ago, and we do uh, a lot of preparation from March until September. So this is one of the what they're sharing to do in their activities in choir club. So I will share to you why you should, or maybe the others, you don't have to be in choir club. You all can do many things in music. For example, everyone has a voice. Everyone can sing. Especially for me, I can sing specifically in bedroom. So I cannot. I don't have a very good voice. So, but everyone has a voice. That is the main important thing, and it's free. Voice is free. Everyone has a free. You don't have to pay to sing, or you don't have to pay to put out your voice, and it's really portable. You don't need any tools or specific travel requirements to sing, and flexible. It has rhythm and words and many things. You can read this one. So singing also is collaborative. We can sing together with the other students, or maybe in the future, this conference can make some video from the other countries to compile in one place, so we can share to the others to support about this condition in COVID-19. And it's very cost effective, yeah, and you don't have to pay much if you want to sing, and singing is a lifelong activity. And for the last, in to building community, that is the why I shared this presentation slide to all of you. So singing is, specifically in choir, is provide a sense of real belonging. So usually choir club consists of 10 or more 20 people. So they have a sense of real belonging. They really engage to each other. They have to engage to each other because they are in one team. They have different tones. They have different voice. So it provides a sense of real belongings. That is one of the reason to building community. And in our university, especially in COVID-19 here, most university students feel bored and frustrated because the lockdown, they do have online learning. They cannot do anything. So one of the way to what is it one of the way to make them not feel very bored, they can do many other things like join the choir club, join do some singing competition. Maybe in here in Punk Scholar Network, you can do many things for the others to make some band, playing some music and many things. And the other problem in our university and campus is the number of persistent students in our university, because in online learning, we have two web tutorial web, we have online learning, we have to TMK or tugas mata kuliah. Many students can choose whether which one is their style to learning. They want to do some tasks, or they want to online private with the tutors, or they want to do online learning with the web. They can do many things, but some students really can not get what they are want. For example, in online learning, they have so many tasks to do. They have so many homework. The tutor only give you task. Do here homework. Do here deadline. Tomorrow deadline. So you only do many things like that. So this is one of the problems. So my point is in building community, that what we have here, students can do many other things in non-academic life. They can sharing their experience. They can join the other clubs like choir clubs. They can doing singing competition, or they can make some video like singing from home that we did in YouTube. You can find it in YouTube. Our choir club singing from home, and it's really nice and it's really good. So I think that's all that I would like to share about our choir club sing virtual during the pandemic COVID-19. So I hope this one is one of the strategy that you can use. Whether you, I hope that the pandemic COVID-19 will stop soon, hopefully next year. Yeah, so we can do our activities again with the normal life. So this is the end of the presentation. So I give to Mas Wiman, silakan Mas Wiman.
Okay, thank you, Mas Yasir. Okay, it's quite new, yeah, because maybe we already seen gigs actually, yeah, some kind of metal gigs or punk gigs through the virtual activity, but this choir, Mas Yasir told us that it it also can be held by the virtual activity, and it has many purposes for the frustrated frustrated student. Thank you very much for Mas
Okay,
Yasir.
Mas.
We
Welcome.
all know because we are all lecturer here, and yeah, not only the student feel bored, and
Yes,
also we feel
I
bored, Mas
agree with
Yasir.
you. Right.
Thank you, Mas Yasir. Okay, we move to the next session, the Q&A. If anyone had a question, please open your microphone and speak out your question. Please go.
Hi there. Is it alright if I go first?
Yeah,
Alright.
William, please.
Hey, I'm William Yanko. I'm a PhD candidate from Aramati University. Uh, First of all, I think thanks to all the presenters, Mas Yasir, Mas Khairul, and Mas Wiman. I think all your research are quite fascinating. In saying that, I do have a couple of questions. For Mas Khairul, on paper, active is great. However, has it actually made any improvements in the fight against human trafficking, considering our largely misogynistic Indonesian society, where our legislators do not even want to certify regulations to protect women and children, like RUU PKS or the Elimination of Sexual Violence Bill? That's the first one. And then for Mas Wiman, what sort of did are they actually made to his imageries that shifted the perceptions of the society in surrounding communities so significantly? Like what are did he just say, oh hey, I'm not actually a Satanist, or did he actually say anything further? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, William. Mas Khairul will answer the first question first, please.
Yeah. The big point is we still agree that women are still marginalized, discriminated, not only in this human trafficking cases, but not only in human trafficking case or human smuggling case, but in almost all issues that women are still marginalized and discriminated. Yeah, we can see in the even in the punk scene, yeah, or the music industry scene that usually women seen as second class group, and we believe that by ratifying the active is not significantly decreasing the number of women as the victims of human trafficking, but it's show the start of our commitment. So in the active, it not only mentioned that the government have the responsibility, but also the people and the community. So in terms of the RUU PKS, as we know, people are struggling. People are demand more and more to the government to legitimate the regulation, the RUU PKS. So this is our homework, not only for the government, but also the community, to the also for the students, for the teachers, lecturers, to always demand our government to show more commitment to protect, to respond the discrimination against women. So yeah, we still have a lot of work to do.
Okay, thank you, Mas Khairul. Okay, the next question is for me. Yeah, if you want to believe William, they only told that I'm not a Satanist because why? Because the Satan prophet is came from preassumption. The pesantren made a preassumption because they already knew on the surface that black metal is always referred to something satanic, but the real thing is Ade that never touch some satanic theme on his lyric, on his agnostica. And maybe you can laugh, yeah, but Ade is a very a very modest man, yeah, modest people, because his access to the internet is very sufficient. He never know what is actually black metal in term as a tool of what revolting against the Christianity in Scandinavia. He never knew that, and he only what adopting the style. In one interview, he told me that why the pesantren address him as a prophet Satan, because every day he wore a reverse cross necklace. Yeah. He never know what that mean, but Cradle of Filth also wore that, and he want to be look like his idol, so that he wore that. But it's not even a Christian; he's a Muslim, and why he wore that reverse cross necklace? And the the truth that Ade is not like we are here. We can say we have an good access to the knowledge, but Ade is a grassroots people. He don't have enough access to the knowledge, and I name it by myself, such as misunderstanding. It's from the cultural misunderstanding, and appropriation is from cultural appropriation. And when I saw Ade the full text, is Ade quite stunning, because am I really this smart, Mas? I don't think I ever plan to become like this. I just let it flow. I just need to talk to people that address me as a satanic prophet. So that's only a formal conversation between them, and other than that, it's only informal conversation. That's what I can give for the answer to your question, William.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah, you can laugh. I also laugh many times, but yeah, Ade can accept that. Okay, thank you for your question, William. Is there any other question? Please go.
Hello, check.
Yo, please, Mas Julianus.
Okay, my name is Febri. Hello, I'm Febri. I'm from Sanata Dharma University, Cultural Studies. So my question goes to Mas Wiman. So I think this is very interesting because in pesantren there is a black metal band. How cool is that? And I just made a comparison to yours. In Solo, there are black metal bands called Makam, Banduso, etc. And I think they were not like pesantren guys, and they took their aesthetic of music based on the local ghosts, like maybe Pocong, Kuntilanak, uh, Banaspati, etc. And I think it's very fluid in Indonesia how people translate the term black metal, which is in Europe, it was constructed by the terms antichrist, satanist, etc. And my question is for Mas Wiman. So how do you define black metal in Indonesia, given such context where it is in pesantren, in like local ghosts and etc. etc. How do you define metal in Indonesia? Because it's far and it's not like we talk about the black metal in Europe. It's very diverse and it's very different. So how do you define it, a researcher? Thank you very much.
Okay,
Mas
thank
Wiman,
you,
please.
Mas Febri. It's a yeah. To be honest, yeah. To be honest, I was dividing. There were two black metal in Indonesia. Yeah, I mean the pure black metal and the acculturated black metal. The pure black metal, you can say such as Fallen Dusk, yeah, something that very similar to the black metal in the Europe. It's fascinating through their music, but for me, the acculturated black metal is much more interesting because they can put something very local into their context. Yeah, for example, the pinnacle of all acculturated black metal is Burtan, ya, Burtani, the band that formed by Pak Kades. It's a very interesting black metal because, like Mas Febri said, that our microcosmos society was not built on the industrial people. Yeah, we are, you can say, agricultural people. So the ghosts and the every context around us is supposed to be something agricultural, just like what Pak Kades said, Pacul Keramat, or everything about the suffering of the farmer. I only can give you that two definition because it's also because of the time. Yeah, I'm no longer become a snow black metal. I have no authorization to tell how to play black metal correctly, and I don't have authorization. Your black metal is a false black metal. I don't have that authorization. Just let like you say, just let this black metal become very fluid and how they doing a very interesting context to the value around them. That's all, Mas Febri. Thank you for the question. It's very interesting. Thank you, Mas Febri.
Yeah, you're welcome. Pleasure. Thank you.
Is there another question, please? We still have 25 minutes. Joy the Kid Black Metal kok ada conference.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah, Joe, please, Joe.
Okay, the thing is like this. I just wonder if the band is truly black metal in the sense that they are satanists, they are, anti-religion and all this. What's gonna happen? I mean, how does that exist in Indonesia? I mean, how would the society take it? How they be treated by the society around them?
Okay, Joe. Yeah. Joe.
Yeah.
I can directly answer your question. Yeah. How this gonna happen? But it's a small comparison maybe. In 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 Scandinavia, yeah. Through the through the Until the Light Take Us documentary, there are many church burning there. Yeah, because I can see the the road that the Christianity wasn't. I didn't blame any kind of religion, yeah, but the context there is that the Christianity didn't able to make a context with the local value. But in here in Indonesia, I think there were no mosque burning, pembakaran masjid. There is no pembakaran masjid. Yeah, right, Joe. Because
No.
Islam in
Okay. It's not necessarily Christianity, or it's just against religion at itself. Like yeah, just being against religion. I mean, not so much like in a certain way, like anti-Christianity, anti-Islam, or
yeah.
things like that. But I mean, I just wonder how would that be treated. I mean, how the society would take it over there, and are there bands like that happening there, or it's just like a? For me, because most of the time when you talk about black metal around here, it mostly almost theoretical. It's a theater. I mean, they're not really into it. They're just into the music, the fashion, and the look of it, and not necessarily subscribe to the whole thing. So I just wonder, how is it in Indonesia? By the way, I'm from Malaysia. Just saying hi.
Yeah. Okay, Joe. Still, I think I still unable to answer. But what will happen?
Can I have a word?
Yeah. Is there anyone?
Yeah. Maybe like
Oh, Mas Error, please, Mas.
yeah. Maybe like Mas Wiman said before. Yeah. In Indonesia, you can classify the black metal into two. Yeah, the pure black metal and the what do you say, the assimilation, or black metal that already mixed with maybe local values. So the mix of black metal and local values, I think that's the way of this black metal community to be accepted maybe by the community perhaps. And as we know that we are very conservative country, that the values of religion are put very high. So that's why the indicator, we hard to have uh, a major black metal band from Indonesia, the pure black metal band from Indonesia. That's the indicator that we are still struggling to have not only black metal but other subcultures, subgenres of music to be accepted as the society, conservative society especially. That's my opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Error. Joe, the reason that I cannot answer your question is my answer will be very what and yeah, it's only prediction. I cannot answer that because what happened in Indonesia is there is no very strike rejection on the black metal through the religion itself. I haven't found that yet, Joe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. By the way, can we talk about Burtan? I mean, that's the band that I really know. I mean, I listen to them and things like that. And Burtan is very unique in the sense that they took all the Indonesian values and pesantren and all this, and and mix it with a lot of the problem, economical problem with the farmers and things like that. But in terms of religiosity, they're not talking about religion so much, basically, right? I mean, I'm asking you guys, no, right? So you just take the music and the look and fit in with this more kind of social concerns that they have around in their society or in their community. Is that right? I'm just looking through all their music so far. I discovered them about 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's correctly, because they took the Indonesian value and they collaborate that with very Scandinavian black metal. That's all the value that I understand based to their lyric. They never talk about the religion or something like that. Religion or spirituality, something like that, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Mas Khairur, maybe there was a question from Mas Aldiman in the chat. You want to write it by yourself, or I need to read it to you?
Yeah. Please read the.
Yeah.
Or let just Mas to Mas Diman to.
Oh, Mas Aldiman.
Ask me directly, perhaps.
Mas Aldiman.
Did he write the?
Sorry, he can read it. He's at the office now. Okay.
Okay.
You see the chat already, Mas Khairur?
Which one? Yeah, the question.
Okay, I will read it to you. About the trafficking. The basic cause or problem is the economic gap. It happens in my region in West Kalimantan, which we have state border to Malaysia. Sarawak, people who live near border, especially in remote village or at the middle of the jungle, they often see the gap of economic and development between Indonesia and Malaysia. Let's say about the development infrastructure. And also another story of trafficking like happened in Singkawang. Some of the local Tionghoa young girl being forced to marry a guy from abroad, usually Taiwan, Hong Kong, or Malaysia. And also the human exploitation and the problem of working class. It's not just happen globally, but also happen inside our country. For example, some of my friends, when they applied to company, and then the company management keep their education certificate, and the employee won't have any chance to get it back until the end of the contract. Okay, maybe it's a statement or example from Mas Aldiman. Maybe you can give your statement to this statement, Mas Khairur, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mas Aldiman. I think those are the example to emphasize the research that I explained before, especially in Kalimantan. The region are still struggle for the economically, politically, and they also are located directly, have share the same area with Malaysia, which they will get more access to across to Malaysia. And if the people of in the Kalimantan, let's say they compare their life with the life in Malaysia, of course there are many reasons for them to move to Malaysia legally or even illegally, which is it can be categorized as human trafficking. So the effort of Indonesia's government is not only to tackle the activity of human trafficking, but also the focus must also to tackle the economic problems in rural area or in the border area. So yeah, like I said before, we still have a long way to go. Yeah, that's my response. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mas Khairur. I think this will be our last question maybe ya, for Mbak Tiara Hairunisa, you can.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay,
we
please.
all know. Okay, we all know that many victims of human trafficking didn't self-identify themselves as a victim and didn't ask for help immediately, due to lack of trust and self-blame. So my question is, what should we do to make them brave to ask for help, and how do we comfort them? Oh, and also, how do we stop human trafficking? Thank you.
Okay, Mas Khairul, you
Okay.
can answer
Yeah.
directly.
Okay. It's very simple, but yeah, we still need to socialize the activity of human trafficking. We need to share to the people how dangerous is the trafficking, what are the consequences, what happen if you are become the victim. So we together have to educate the people, not only the women. So it in the face of prevention. Yeah, so there are prevention, and we also must have a big concern to the victims. So we have to, like Indonesia has done. Yeah, there are like what formal bodies or formal institute that accept the victims, yeah, to heal their psychology situation, or also to protect uh, the witnesses of trafficking activities. So we have to, overcome all structure problem, cultural problem, and political uh, problem in Indonesia, and we need to work together. Like I said before, not only the government but also the community, the power of youth, also that already uh, aware of the dangers of human trafficking. But what really important is to educate the people. That is the most important one, I think. And of course, law enforcement. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mas Khairul. I see here there were a very intimate conversation between Febri, William, and Emma talk about Burtan. Okay, we still have 10 minutes. Is there anything else you want to ask to the presenter? No? If there are no questions, I would like to close the session. Thank you very much for Mas Yasir and Mas Khairul and Wiman. Yeah, it's myself. Thank you for the question, and thank you for Bank Scholar Network to make this thing happen. And for the audience, thank you for everything. Really hope to meet you directly in any other opportunities. And as a moderator, I would like to give you I want to say I'm sorry if there was something wrong with my presentation or any other presentation and any another technical uh, technical technical something happened not right today. Looking forward to meet you directly. Stay healthy, everybody. Thank you for the opportunities, Mas Herur and Mas Yasir. Thank you. I give this session back to Nurul. Please, Nurul.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of the presenters. Thank you to Mr. Wiman Thank you to Mr. Hoyer and thank you to Mr. Yasir for the presentation. Okay, to all of the audiences, please go back to the main room because we have another session that is quiz session, and we will see the performances by Kritika Vat and Faith Runner. Or if you want to join room A, you can chat our host in Zoom chat. Oh, yeah, room A. Yeah, you can. Okay, if you want to join room A, you can chat our host in Zoom chat. Or if you want to waiting in main room, you can go back to main room right now. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Say hello, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
great day.
Stay healthy.